Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Talks with Thompson podcast. I'm really excited to talk to my new friend, Dominick Tucciarone, who is a social media content coordinator at the Walt Disney Company in Florida. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, RJ.
How's your work life? What's new?
A lot is new. I think just this year in general, more things have happened this year than any other year. Not only like with myself, but with social media, diving into TikTok, exploring like new ways to make Instagram and Facebook like TikTok.
Yeah.
But honestly, just trying to keep up with everything.
Diving into TikTok and then not being able to get out of the TikTok, black hole, right?
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you and learn about your background and how you got to Disney and what your entry into the industry was like. Let's talk about your humble beginnings. What made you get into social media and graphic design?
Well, it's never a straight shot, There's always like winds and turns. And actually, my humble beginnings actually started with computer science.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Very interesting, right? It's interesting to see just how things change, especially from high school throughout college into now. But like the start of like me diving into anything education related, I wanted to do computer science. And so I had done 2 years of that before I realized that is not for me. So that's the funny thing, right? Like you have to realize that there are some things that you're not good at. And you realize you don't realize it actually until you're in it and you're like, oh my gosh, like I totally don't want to do this. This goes hand in hand with how I started with Walt Disney actually is during that moment of like not knowing what I wanted to do. This was my sophomore year of college. I went to the Disney college program where I was just working, a job where you just basically, I always called it like a work internship because you're actually working in the parks. I was doing some custodial work, which was very fun, actually. You get to enjoy all of the entertainment in the parks, all while just taking out the trash. And then I was a jungle cruise skipper, for anybody who knows what that is, giving tours around a fake jungle. And then after I did that for 6 months, I was like, okay, I don't exactly know what I want to do, but I know where I want to be. So I was looking at all of the career options for Disney, and something that piqued my interest most was a communications job, which basically required a basic knowledge of graphic design and anything that came with writing, photography, video work, and design. So that was my jump into what would have been social media towards the end of my college career. So as soon as I like dived into that, I was like, all right, let's get it. I've already done a couple things in video work. I've always had an interest in advertising. So I focused everything a little more towards that. And I wouldn't say that I completely dropped computer science because I still reference things to like how coding works. And, you have to have like a coding brain to understand even some programs now like Premiere or Photoshop. Yeah. So, trying to like carry that. I didn't waste 2 years, I like to say. I just kind of like repurposed them. Right. And that was it. After college, I got an internship with Disney. They liked that I did the college program. That was definitely a plus. But also making that portfolio to make sure that like your personal work is going to match what you do in actual professional work.
I love hearing your story. When I was teaching at Youngstown State, I had a lot of students who participated in that Disney college internship program. And I even had some of my own students end up working for Disney as well as graphic designers. And it always seemed like it was a really intuitive entry point to the bigger company. So I'm glad that you took the same process and that it worked out for you as well. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about a little bit about your comp sci background because, it's important to me, maybe as a passion point, but I really appreciate computer science from the point of view that it introduces like logic to your
Mm-hmm.
work, and it helps you understand to a really great extent cause and effect
Mm-hmm.
and systems level thinking. So, you're working at a large corporation, you have to have, maybe not so much in your position, but I think you have to have an awareness of Disney as a system and how you work within it. And not just that, but to your point with the software, you have to have a really intuitive understanding of how some of these things work, especially if you're a multimedia creator. So having that logic and systems level type of thinking built in to your
Mm-hmm.
communication and design skills, I think is a really great asset.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's almost like a very complicated prerequisite to
Right.
something that barely uses it, but it's true. It's a mindset. It's a way of thinking. The logic behind it is so true. Is that I kind of consider my job like in the gray. There's never a yes or no answer. A lot of things are kind of just opinionated. Some are subjective, but nothing is yes, no. There's always going to be a gray area. And with computer science and other numbers jobs, there's like always a right answer. There's always a wrong answer. And
Right.
kind of like knowing when to separate those two mindsets of like, this is a yes, no, and this is like just in the gray. You can definitely like kind of, have a good understanding of when to use what, when, to put it vaguely. But also it really makes you appreciate the gray, because when you come out of a 1-0 yes no into that gray area where anything is a possibility, it is so
Right.
relieving. And I think it kind of like makes you a little more creative, knowing that things can have these limitations, but the world is open.
Absolutely. It's like you have to work outside of the box while also still working within the box.
Mm-hmm.
And I often tell my students, like, we operate in those gray spaces. So marketing, a lot of it is experimentation, and so too is graphic design. You have to, revise and revise and revise until you get things just the way you need them to. But your guiding light in that context is, what are your analytics? What's your data telling you?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have very hard numbers on, or criteria on who your demographics are, it helps sort of guide your work in a very concentrated way, while also still letting you maintain some of that creativity. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like an extra shade of gray, getting closer to
Exactly.
black, right?
There's about 50 shades of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
No,
appreciate your reference.
nowhere near what we're talking about, but
No, no, no. um, so, so you've got the communications and the design background, and I'm interested in hearing how those two skills complement each other when you're actually doing your work. So,
mhm.
like, what do you make, and how do you use your comms and your design skills?
That's a great question. So we'll start with what I make. We support anything that is going to be seen by guests, mainly the social media side of things. So we have a lot of social platforms, all supporting different aspects of the park, whether it's like just events going on in the park, or new merchandise releases, or even if we have to make something that's like news related. Usually, like we'll support anything that's on social media. Basically, you have like the big top dogs that will make a lot of the marketing material, and then there's the people who also make that same exact stuff, but specifically for a specific target audience in social media, because it's not the same. People watching TV aren't always the same people who are scrolling through TikTok, and vice versa. Same now with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. You could see that there's a lot of different people using different platforms, and this is going to be where taking that communication and design um, skill is going to help a lot, because understanding communications, knowing exactly how to vary your communication style for a specific audience, using that in your design work is so important. Here's a 30-second ad on TV. How are you going to turn that into a 15-second TikTok?
Right.
How are you going to turn that into a single graphic that you'll scroll through on Instagram? It's a matter of knowing what to say and how to say it. So, taking that idea of, okay, I'm someone who's scrolling through Instagram. There's stories, there's feeds, there's comment sections and direct messages. That's the communication aspect of it. The design aspect is what's going to get people to actually view it. What's going to get people to actually want to hit that follow button. What's going to get people to interact with it. That's a huge thing. Interactions are so much more important than just views. So while your design looks nice, what's the call to action? Right. All of these things are going through our minds collectively as a team, because we have so many great, talented people working with the team. And I'm still learning a lot from them, which is great because I always want to learn different aspects of it. But constantly we're thinking of different ways we could vary up the content for a specific audience. And I think that's probably what makes the design and the communications skills really blend together.
That's a fantastic example. I appreciate your, the reductionist or minimalist sort of perspective on creating variations of that base work. And that in and of itself, I'm sure can be exceptionally challenging, especially when, I mean, you're at Disney, you have so much to say and such little space to say it in. And fortunately, Disney being an inherently visual, thing, like a lot of your photos and videos, your visuals can do a lot of the talking for you. Mm-hmm. Right.
It's very true.
So I like that you're able to balance those two things together. And did you ever think that when you were in school, like that balance of those skills was going to be as necessary, or did you really focus more on like, I want to do more communications than design, or was the balance always in the picture for you?
I honestly didn't want to tap into the communication side of things as much as I wanted to tap into the design style of things. But that was like my college brain just saying like, this is way more fun than sitting through all of these media study classes. Right. And then, so like my portfolio was all like kind of design focused. There was really no intention to be making some of these things besides the fact that it looked cool. And then actually taking an internship and then trying to work towards a goal. That's when I kind of came to like the harsh reality that like, oh my gosh, like all of these like skills from the media studies is way more important than I thought it would be, because you can have the nicest, prettiest looking design of anything, but if it doesn't have a story or a reason for it, it's never going to hit as well as those ones that really, are going to let people interact with it.
Right. What's the soul of the narrative?
Basically? Exactly. That's a great word right there. Narrative.
Yeah. I took a journalism class in undergraduate. Or I took what I thought was a journalism class. As it turned out, it was more of like a literature class. But despite the differences, it helped me get to that core of the narrative and really understand that how important that is, and how some of these incredible authors shaped those narratives, right? Mm-hmm. So, I tell my students, like, you need to really focus on the storytelling aspects of the work that you're doing, because if it doesn't tell a story, let alone a relatable one, then it very well may fall flat. Mm-hmm. And, in my interactive design classes, I also say, what's the story behind the interface? What's the process that you want to take them through when you're designing an interface for a website or a mobile app or something like that? So that same concept applies across medium.
Right. Yeah. Always the why, it's
always the why.
Always. Oh, you could ask why endlessly. It's an infinite question, to be honest, because sometimes you get to a point where it's like, I don't know. It's just because it works.
Well, that's actually a part of, so that I do want to ask you this, but I'll say this first. That is a part of my creative process, is asking why backwards. So this is black. Why is this black? Oh, it's because of this reason. Well, why? Mm-hmm. And that helps you really uncover a lot of truths behind the work that you're doing and the solutions as well. So let's talk about your creative process. How do you solve a problem?
Well, I have something that I usually say to myself a lot when it comes to solving a problem, is that the first step to solving a problem is understanding it.
Mhm.
And so constantly trying to really understand why something doesn't work, kind of like starting with, again, the why, um, but talking about why it doesn't work, and really looking for examples of similar things. I think there's so much out in the real world right now, that it's almost impossible to create something original, to be honest.
I
Everything's
feel the
always a
same
copy,
way.
right? So looking for those examples of similar things, like, okay, you have a problem. Is there anything that was like this problem in the past personally? Or maybe you've seen it in other businesses, or maybe in just your Instagram feed, or literally any social media feed. Have you seen like anything that's like this before? And kind of like understanding it, taking real world examples, and then seeing what works, what really resonated with you. That usually is the start of my process. I'll look for those examples, especially the things that are done right, and then you kind of copy and then recreate, and then you do it to a point where it's just original, because those little mistakes that you made in trying to like mimic something,
Right.
all of a sudden become a personal touch to you. Obviously, I don't say you should copy anything and use it as your own, but it's just like, there's a story of someone literally rewriting a book so they can understand the writing style of specific authors, and the same exact way of you trying to recreate specific designs, or even like camera angles and video effects, uh, slowly turn into your own process. And I have a lot of like inspirations, from video editors, and some photographers that I'll always use as a reference, and then see what are the tweaks that are really going to make it personal. What are the things that are not going to immediately say, this is just a recreation, but instead this is inspiration from specific artists. So creative process will usually come with that inspiration aspect of it, and trying to take things, and make it your own. The original that, I guess the originality behind it might be from those random things that don't make sense to you at
Right.
first. And you ask yourself why and why and why. And eventually, you start, well, I guess this is something I nobody likes to admit this, but you kind of just throw stuff at a wall until it sticks, right?
Right. Yeah.
um, Most of the time, especially with my design work, honestly, it is just making something and then copy pasting it, and then changing a little thing, and then copy pasting it, and then changing something, and then copy pasting it again and changing something, and then 5 tries down the line, it is so different from what you originally created that
Right.
it is just something that you would have never made unless you had done that kind of process. It's kind of barbaric, but sometimes it just works.
Yeah, you have to go through that iterative design revision phase to really get to the core of your solution, or to optimize your solution. And it always it's a journey, and you need to do that searching to get to that final destination. It's never just as simple as just do this one thing and that's it. And I think that is also a common misconception with folks that work with designers. They think that this is the best solution right out of the gate, when it's really not at all. In some cases, like marketers, or not even just marketers, but folks in general looking at our work, they would not understand or even think that, oh, that's actually the 57th version of that design.
That's true.
Right?
I love that there's a chart that literally shows, a path to success, and
Mhm.
it's like a straight line. And kind of going back to like what we mentioned like in the beginning of this whole entire thing, it's never a straight shot. It's fail, 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 success, and it's like this big zigzaggy, curvy, random array of strings, and then that's what actually leads to success.
Well, not, and yes, and the final design that someone sees, that's all they see. They don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily see the iterative work.
Well,
Um,
that's the thing. It's you make it look like it's easy.
I love that you said, like, essentially you have to be inspired by work. You have to look at good design to become a better designer. And that always reminded me of what Picasso said about, you know, good artists copy, great artists steal. Um, you have to, if you're listening or watching, you have to dig a little bit deeper into the context of that quote. But essentially, and I agree with you, like, I feel like anything that could be created has basically already been created or at least conceptualized.
Right.
And it's actually kind of depressing because there's like no original thought. Um, so when you look at, so for example, I make ad campaigns for an MBA program, right? How do I recruit people into an MBA program, a discipline that is really not that visual, right? Well, I'm looking at Swiss minimalism design from the 40s, right? Or I'm looking at some, you know, some of the poppier things from the 80s. So it's like I'm looking at all these different you know, genres and times of design, and that's
Mhm.
informing a contemporary solution.
Yes. In fact, that kind of, well, one, I would like to suggest a YouTube series. I think it's a 3-part series, but he may have uploaded it into like one full hour long a video. It is called Everything is a Remix. And it is a very big, in-depth look at the difference between, you know, inspiration and the idea of actually stealing or copying. And there's like so many blurred lines, especially in the music industry, of people able to literally remix songs, and then people who are sued for essentially taking the same exact composition. Uh, it's a very interesting story to like see just what is like allowed in terms of, you know, what you can use for your own sake and what you can use as that inspiration for your work. But also to your point, um, darn, I forgot what I was going to say. I'm trying to like think of too many things at the same
That's
time.
okay. We can record multiple episodes. It's totally fine.
Yeah, I know, right?
But we are getting towards the end of our time together, and I wanted to ask you if you had any advice to offer undergraduate students that are going to be graduating soon and looking to enter the workforce.
Well, I would say definitely look outside at real world examples, like we were talking about. I think that one thing that I could have done better while I was in college looking out is honestly, don't even look at your professors as professors, but look at them as people, because they've all been through the same exact experiences that you have.
Absolutely.
And even something as real as, can I see your work? You know, I think every professor has done some personal work before they have gotten into the realm of teaching. And kind of like seeing all the things that they've done to get them where they are, honestly, could be the biggest inspiration for you. And then you can take that same exact idea of remix and see if you can really understand their style by mimicking and then creating that into your own work.
The second that I recognized the professors that I had a lot of respect for, as soon as I recognized them as flawed mortals,
Mm-hmm.
is when I really started to change my entire thinking behind my career and my approach to it. So that's wonderful advice. Well, Dominic, we're at the end of our time together, but if folks are interested in learning more about you or Disney, how can they find you or learn more?
Well, I'm always available on LinkedIn. That's how we actually got connected, RJ.
That's right.
I love seeing people interested in learning more. So literally just hitting that connect button shows me that you guys are interested. And if you'd love to chat, if I have the time for it, I could always like send a message, or, you know, maybe we could always just Zoom call and set up some meet and greets, because it is such an interesting realm. And I think a lot of people deserve to hear all about the change that is coming, because social media literally is like the future. So
Absolutely.
let's get together.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thanks again, Dominic. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.